Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is March 8th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone is doing well. So some of the stories that we're going to cover today have to deal with, obviously, Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-China trade talks. I know I usually reserve that topic for my economic podcast, but since there was a lot of news in the markets over yesterday and I was off on Thursday, I might want to touch base on that today lightly. And obviously that has not only to do with economics, but it has a lot to do, I think, with politics too, as we start to progress. And it seems like they might be hitting a wall. I don't know for certain because we're given so many conflicting stories from the White House and from China, and it's back and forth. It was a fantastic deal. Now it's cautiously optimistic. We'll touch on that. And also I want to touch on a couple stories going on around the globe, because while we may think that we are alone in the United States with endless investigations and our presidents or prime ministers or whoever is the head of our government being investigated and being accused of corruption, well, President Trump is not alone. We have Justin Trudeau of Canada, we have Emmanuel Macron of France, we have Theresa May of the UK, we have Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu of Israel. I mean, just spin the globe, put your finger somewhere, and somebody's probably being investigated or accused of fraud or something. It's just the state of our politics, not only in the United States, but around the world. So nobody should really be surprised by this. I know some people may be shocked. We shouldn't be. But that's just the state of affairs. Like it or not, that's where we are. But first, let me talk about Paul Manafort. And of course, Paul Manafort was President Trump's former campaign manager. A short-lived stint, but helped him get through the whole process there with the delegates and really to get his name into nomination and to seal up the nomination on the Republican ticket. Well, of course, he had I don't know, maybe you could say a shady past, a shady reputation, worked with some foreign players, particularly that in Ukraine. And of course, they're kind of Russians, so I mean, we were kind of there, but that's as close as they could get. And of course, some people make the leap that some of the Ukrainian leaders were puppets of Russia, so indirectly, first, second, third degree, President Trump is therefore working with the Russians. That's a stretch. Nobody's really making it because, well, it's Looney Tune. And we live in Looneyville, so you're going to hear these things more and more, especially as we continue to see the Democrats attack the president from every angle possible. Is it going to come to a slowdown? We spoke previously. We might be seeing some glimmers of hope. There do seem to be some Democrats who want to say, let's tone this down a little bit. A couple of adults may actually exist on the Democrat side. Do they have any weight? Well, we'll see what happens. But Paul Manafort was tried and convicted, tax fraud, not dotting his I's, crossing his T's, and dealing with being a foreign agent. Of course, this has a lot of overlap with the Clinton Foundation investigation. We had that discussion previously as well. And of course, all of this is going to tie back together by the time I'm done explaining a lot of this to you guys. But Mr. Manafort was sentenced to 47 months in prison. Many people are saying this is a light sentence. Of course, those are primarily those on the left. If you're a Republican or most definitely Donald Trump, it's more or less a moral victory because it could have been 19 to 24 years. So he's getting 47 months, let's just call it 4 years. And of that 47 months, the 9 months that he has already served will count towards that. Now, Mr. Manafort is not out of the woods yet. He has other legal issues where he could end up spending an additional up to 10 years in prison, depending on how that judge determines his case and his outcome. So I'll keep you posted on that, but at least he dodged 19 to 24 years. Now, he's an older gentleman, too, so, 19, 24 years, that would have been the rest of his life. I can't speak to the health of the man, and obviously prison is not a great environment for anybody. And 4 years is a long time. So not to say that would be the end of his life, but 19 to 24 years would most likely have been the end of the line for Mr. Manafort. So I'll keep you updated on that. Of course, the lunatics on the 2020 campaign were out and had a tweet Let's look at Amy Klobuchar. Of course, I don't think this woman really has a chance, but it's obviously that's my opinion. If you like her, you can vote for her. She may be able to work her way around everybody else. When everybody else is, really hitting the main players, Bernie Sanders, Pocahontas, Kamala Harris, maybe she slides under the radar. We'll see. The debates will start coming up. Of course, it's come to my attention that Fox News is excluded from hosting any debates for the Democrats. I mean, talk about freedom of the press and diversity, right? I mean, we want to get our message out to everybody. We believe in the freedom of speech and the press. A lot of these candidates do even go on Fox from time to time. Amy Klobuchar was on there. She was on there with Bret Baier not too long ago when she was announcing her run. I mean, just look at the past history of the Republican debates. They went everywhere. They went on CNN. They went on CBS, NBC. I mean, what's the problem here? What's the problem here? And when they were on Fox, they were asked tough questions. I mean, all this does is goes to further divide and conquer the people. That's all it is. It's just division. Go on there and answer some questions. I mean, you are running to be the most powerful person in the world. You can't handle it. You can't cut a few different questions from another news agency. Are you kidding me? I mean, they are a major news agency. You may not like some of the commentary that they have on there. You might not like the likes of some people on The Five or Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Tucker Carlson. Okay, that's fine. It's probably not going to be them who's asking the questions. It'll be Chris Wallace, who does a very good, impartial job on Fox News Sunday. And it'll probably be Bret Baier, who's pretty much down the middle, too, on his news program. He's not there for commentary. He's there for hard news and ask some questions. So what's the big deal? What are you afraid of? You can't answer these questions, but you want to be the most powerful man or woman in the world? Give me a break. Give me a break. So here's Amy Klobuchar's comments on Paul Manafort's sentencing. My view on Manafort's sentence. Guidelines there for a reason in regards to the 19 to 24 years. His crimes took place over years, and he led far from a blameless life. Crimes committed in an office building should be treated as seriously as crimes committed on a street corner. Can't have two systems of justice. Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Senator Klobuchar, on having two systems of justice. Well, then why don't you ask disgraced former FBI Director Jim Comey why he came out in, July of 2016 and said Hillary Clinton is guilty of A through Z and all over again, but we're not going to prosecute her. Answer that question. You answer that question, and we'll have a serious discussion on the issues revolving President Trump and Paul Manafort. She won't be able to. Then, of course, we have Pocahontas, Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's off the reservation, but she had a tweet as well. Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, commits bank and tax fraud and gets 47 months. A homeless man, Fate Winslow, helped sell $20 of pot and got life in prison. The words above the Supreme Court say equal justice under the law. When will we start acting like it? Same question to you, madam. Same question to you. You going to ask Jim Comey why he said Hillary Clinton was guilty of all that stuff and then didn't prosecute? Answer that question. And of course, she brings out somebody who went to jail for life. She says for selling $20 worth of pot. I bet, I'm going out on a leap on this one, I bet she's leaving out a lot of important details. Okay? Maybe she's only giving us 1/2000th of the real facts on that story. Okay? I bet she's leaving some information out of that one. Which is what she's going to do with everything else. Free child care, how are you going to pay for it? Medicare for all, how are you going to pay for it? Well, we're just going to tax the rich. I'm going to put together something. I am going to look at the Forbes 500 list. I don't know when that comes out. It may have already come out. I'm not certain. If it hasn't, I'm going to go look back at last year's. Not only am I going to calculate the top 500, that's the world, by the way. I'm just going to look also, so I'll do that. I will look at the top 500, add up their net worth, and see how long that would fund the federal government. I bet it doesn't take too long. I bet it doesn't even get close to 1 year. Then I'm going to dilute that list because that's the globe. I am just going to look at the Americans in the top 500. And now that's definitely going to be less. And I'm going to say we confiscate 100% of their net worth. 100% of their net worth. And of course, it doesn't matter. These are just going to be numbers because it's not all cash. There's stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate, some things that are highly liquid, some things that are very illiquid. But it matters not. We're just going to see how far Pocahontas and these socialist programs, how far this free stuff is going to last by simply taxing the rich. Because I'm just going to say, for the sake of argument, we confiscate 100% of it. 100% of what they've taken their lifetimes to achieve. And if some of these people are heirs or heiresses, maybe it's taken generations to get to that wealth accumulation. So I'm just going to take it all. I'm just going to take it all, and we're going to see how long that would fund this government. I bet you it's not a long time. And I bet I'm right. And of course, in regards to this, because President Trump views this more or less as a moral victory, he was out to Twitter and he said the following: both the judge and the lawyer in the Paul Manafort case stated loudly and for the world to hear that there was no collusion with Russia. But the witch hunt hoax continues as you now add these statements to House and Senate intelligence and Senator Burr. So bad for our country. And of course, Senator Burr is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. So President Trump is looking at this as a moral victory. There is no collusion with Russia stated in this case. This has to do with tax fraud, tax evasion, and not dotting some I's, crossing some T's with the Foreign Registration Act. Which again, if you follow this podcast, the Clinton Foundation may very well be under investigation for committing the same type of criminal offense. Tax evasion and not dotting some I's and crossing some T's in doing that. So if you're going to send Paul Manafort to prison, even if it's for a light sentence of 47 months, how are you going to now look the other way if there actually is an investigation into the Clintons on tax evasion because they use their charitable status as a front to make a lot of money and not pay any taxes on it? But of course, you and I have to pay taxes. You and I have to pay taxes. And when I do that little exercise with the wealthiest people in the world, well, obviously that's not going to be enough to fund it. So then Pocahontas is going to have to realize, well, I'm going to have to come after everybody else. I didn't want to do that, but I don't know math that well, and that's just what's going to take place. So you look out for it. It's coming. Don't you worry. But I really don't think these people have a chance in 2020 because President Trump, I think, again, with the fireworks, I think he will do a 180 on these guys. He will do some declassifying of documents. We still have the Inspector General's report due out that has to deal with the Justice Department, and then that whole cast and crew of probably criminals, the Andrew McCabe's of the world, the Peter Strzok's, Lisa Page, Bruce Orr and his wife, and of course Jim Comey, and the list goes on and on. And then it's just going to be a battle of who's lying and who's lying even more. Again, this could be some serious fireworks. President Trump is a showman. He's a salesman. He's waiting to play that Trump card because he has the power and the authority as the President of the United States to declassify any document he wants if he thinks it's in the best interest of the country. And if you have a lot of Democrats wasting all of the time here and the people's money on baseless investigations, well, you know, if there's something in these reports that he can declassify that say enough's enough and may very well prove that it was the Democrats in the Obama administration, the Clinton campaign, the Democrat Party, who was actually spying on the president, well, now you have a problem, don't you? Now you have a big problem. So what's going to happen if that does happen? Will Jerry Nadler stop on a dime? Impeach 45? Maxine Waters, will she stop? Adam Schiff, will he stop? AOC the boss, will she stop? Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Elijah Cummings, will they just stop if that happens? if it's that damning, well, I think they would have to. They might even have to resign if it's that bad, if some of these names drop that I think might drop. But I don't know enough yet, so I'm not going to speculate on those names. But I have a hunch, and I will keep you posted. Now, moving north to our friendly neighbors in Canada, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is in a little bit of a problem. Well, what's going on up there? Well, a scandal is swirling around Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Liberal Party. It could threaten the political future of the country's leader in the role of the Liberal Party 7 months ahead of national elections. Isn't it amazing that all of these elections are coming up at the same time, and now all of a sudden you have all of these world leaders in major countries and major economies around the world in a little bit of trouble. Some in a lot of trouble. Justin Trudeau, Macron, May, Netanyahu, and of course, President Trump himself still has all of these investigations going on. Okay? So here's an article. I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs for you. So, what happened? The Globe and Mail reported on February 7th that Jody Wilson-Raybould, the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General, had been pressured to help a Quebec-based construction company settle a criminal case and avoid prosecution over allegations that it bribed officials in Libya for government contracts. Oh, no, there is no way anybody could have bribed another government, or there couldn't have been any of that, could there? That just doesn't happen. Wilson-Raybould later alleged in testimony to the House Justice Committee that she faced veiled threats and sustained pressure to help Montreal-based SNC-Lavalin, a major employer in Canada. A conviction would keep the company from getting government contracts for a decade. It has 9,000 employees in Canada and thousands more worldwide. Now, there have been resignations in the Prime Minister's cabinet, and now this starts to snowball. And this is obviously not a good time for any politician for this to happen, but especially when you are only several months out from an election. So it's interesting because you had a interesting relationship, I guess you could say, which is true, I think, of most world leaders as it goes to the relationship with President Trump. I think it's friendly and professional, but these guys are most definitely not buddy-buddy. I don't really know if there's any world leader that Trump is buddy-buddy with. To be honest with you, I don't think he really wants to be buddy-buddy with anybody. I think he wants to be professional and courteous with a lot of people. I think he does want to promote American ideas and free market capitalism, although you know how I feel about the president and some of his policies that I think even run counter to that. How aware he is of that fact, I don't know, but I think he is ultimately a cheerleader for this country and just wants to get some deals done and really wants to advance the U.S. economy to the best of his ability, which, with everything that we're mired in, is a monumental task for anybody. But it's just interesting to finally see some of these people who think they are above it all and wanted to point the finger at Donald Trump as a laughingstock are now in it up to their eyeballs themselves. Now, across the pond, we have the Yellow Vests. The French riots, if you will, are continuing. I think what are we on now? The 16th or 17th consecutive weekend of protests. Macron, his approval ratings are not good at all. They're in the high 20s or low 30s, depending on the polling data. And you have, if this thing continues to grow, it has become a little bit more, how you want to put it? It is most definitely diminished in size, in strength, and now you're starting to see maybe the outliers take hold, or at least that's the story that the powers that be want to put out there and promote, and obviously that has to do with a lot of the anti-Semitism that seems to be rearing its ugly head in some of these protests and in some of the language of the Yellow Vest rioters and protesters. I don't know how much of that I actually believe, because when you start to say that somebody's a racist or an anti-Semite, it's people are trying to end the discussion right then and there. Well, you're a racist, therefore I am not going to acknowledge anything else. Well, you're an anti-Semite, therefore I'm not going to give you any credibility, and we're just going to stop it right there. So I almost think this is more of a tactic by the state as propaganda. And isn't it coincidental? Isn't it just coincidental that you have the Israeli prime minister, under investigation for corruption himself? All this anti-Semitism going on, not only here with the French, but also here in the United States as well. I'm not going to get into it because this stuff is just ridiculous to me. You just these words, they just get thrown around so loosely and willy-nilly. I'm frankly sick and tired of it. You just have a discussion, have a true and honest debate. Everybody, you can't do that. You can't have a Democrat debate with Fox News. If you don't agree with somebody, you just call them a racist. You don't like somebody, just call them an anti-Semite, and that's the end of the story. I mean, aren't we supposed to do better than this? I mean, unless somebody is truly a racist or truly an anti-Semite, have a discussion, have a debate. If your argument is that much better, you should be able to destroy these people like it's nothing. So what are you so afraid of? And then lastly, the drama with our great allies in the UK continues. And now Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the UK, says the following. She warns that Brexit may never happen at all if members of Parliament vote to reject her deal for a second time. I don't know what this means. Is this a threat that you're not going to leave? Because, Madam Prime Minister, you have said multiple times, and rightly so, and I have defended you on this, that the people of the UK spoke back in 2016 already. Yes, 2016, where you're going on 3 years. I think coming this June, it'll be 3 years since they said, we want to leave the EU. And we're going to listen to the wishes and the will of the people, as she should have said, and as she in Parliament better follow through on, because it was Parliament that put forward the referendum. Now, they probably didn't think that the British people in the broader UK were actually going to vote to leave. Well, that's democracy for you, isn't it? That was the risk you put up there. And the people said, we want out. And that's what's going on. So it's going to be interesting to see if she actually backs out or she's just using this as a scare tactic to get some of the people, even in her own party, to vote for this deal. Okay? I mean, because it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I can't believe that she even uttered those words. I know the woman is most definitely under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. But, you knew what position you were running for. You can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And, of course, that's easy for me to say. I'm just here bloviating, But nevertheless, it's still true. You just don't say those types of things when you've been saying for a very long time, and again, rightly so, that the people have spoken. We are not going to put this to a second referendum. And remember, this is March 8th. Come March 12th, they are going to vote on this deal again that the Prime Minister has, quote-unquote, renegotiated with EU bureaucrats to see if it gets approved. And if it gets approved, then I guess the British people can leave the European Union by the deadline, which is March 29th. That's the end of this month. It's only a few weeks away. And of course, if they don't vote for it, they're going to have another vote as to whether or not they are going to extend that deadline. Oh my goodness, more deadlines, more kicking the can further down the road. Where have we heard this before? Well, this ties in nicely with the last segment as I wrap all of this up today. The Trump-China trade talks. Now, of course, we were told that everything was going beautifully well, that there was going to pretty much be a deal, that the only thing was coming, we got to get President Xi over here to Mar-a-Lago down in Florida, sunny Florida. So President Xi and President Trump can get down there and do their signing ceremony, iron out the final details, and then sign these fancy documents that comprise the best deal ever known to man, and that this was maybe going to take place in the middle of March. Well, nope. That's not the case. That's not true. maybe the end of March, the 27th or the 28th, and now we're told, well, we don't want to cement it in. This is Larry Kudlow, by the way, the economic advisor to the president, coming out today. I caught him on Bloomberg News this morning, coming out. And now, instead of saying that it is a fantastic, remarkable, and historic idea, Larry Kudlow is now cautiously optimistic that a deal will be struck. Are you kidding me? You go from all this hyperbole and exaggeration of telling me this is going to be the best thing ever to, well, now I am cautiously optimistic, and he doesn't want to cement in when these world leaders might get together for their signing ceremony. Maybe it'll be the end of March. Maybe it'll be sometime in April, because President Xi is a busy man, and he has to talk it over with other government officials in China. I can't make this stuff up. I can't make it up. I wish I was. Again, I told you, I like to fancy myself as a creative person, and I am, but I couldn't make this stuff up if you paid me. So, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you. I hope you all enjoy your weekend. Stay warm if you got cold weather, and obviously those who suffered down south with some of those terrible storms, our thoughts and prayers are with you, and all the best in your recovery efforts, as the President and the First Lady were down there today as well, visiting with members of those communities. So please like, share, subscribe, get the word out. Leave your comments. I'd love to hear from you. Again, enjoy your weekend. This is the Capital News. I am Alex Koritis. Godspeed.